Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
So, since you're here, I'm guessing that you have confronted some of the deep questions in life. Like, who am I? Why am I here? What is the meaning of life? Do I have some cosmic purpose? And if so, what is it? And I'm also guessing that you've probably tried some things. You may have ruled out some activities at this point. You may have discovered that life is not about trying as many ice cream flavors as you possibly can. You might have discovered that life is not about playing drinking games with friends, although that was, I'm sure, really fun at some point in life. So you may have discovered that life is not about collecting people. It's not about collecting things. It's not even about collecting experiences that we have or that we possess. So in this section of the year, we're going to be referring to this book by Panache Desai, You Are Enough. So this is kind of a launching point. And according to Panache, you do have a cosmic purpose, and this is what it is. In your finite physical body, come to know your unbounded divine nature. In your finite physical body, come to know your unbounded divine nature. And here's how you do that. This is another quote from him, from Panache Desai. Meet yourself with love and acceptance because you are loved by God exactly as you are. And this is what we teach in Unity, that we don't have to win God's approval. We don't have to earn God's approval. We don't see God as a being that has preferences and prejudices. So even though there are stories in the Bible of God having opinions and judgments and liking some people and maybe not liking others, we read the Bible as the progression of consciousness, humanity's progression in consciousness. So we're continuing to learn, we're continuing to go deeper, we're continuing to discover more. And according to Panache Desai, there's a collective awakening being birthed into the world. That we are part of a collective awakening being birthed into the world. And this sounds great. I hope that it's true that there is a collective awakening being birthed in the world. And I think also that humanity has always been doing this, but that now information is so much more accessible. So maybe in the past you would have to go study in a monastery or join an ashram and study for 20 years at the feet of a master who has some secret esoteric knowledge. And now it's just so much easier to get information that we can share, and experiences and workshops and videos and just all kinds of ways that we can share what used to be considered secret knowledge and wisdom. So again, when we think of as God, well, let me say it this way. I think of kind of maybe two levels. That one is the eternal, infinite, unbounded source of all that is, and that is that God is love. That God is only love. There is no opposite. That infinite, eternal source of creativity and everything that we experience in can't be anything but love. So we say God is love. There's no opposite. There's nothing but love. And again, we don't have to earn it. We don't have to meet some kind of criteria that we're worthy just because we exist. Just by the fact of your own existence, you are part of the love of the eternal. Now, we do sometimes have maybe personal gods, a different type of God that maybe we could think of does have preferences and prejudices and loves us, and I like that God too. I like that idea of God that can hold me in the palm of his hand when I really need comforting. So in Unity, we teach affirmative prayer, that we affirm what we want to claim and see and have come forth, emerge into the world. And I will tell you that there are times that I beseech and supplicate. We don't teach beseeching, supplicating prayer, but sometimes I find it just effective to have like a personal relationship with Jesus or with a personal God. Here's an example. Some weeks ago, earlier this summer, Myra and I, we videotaped a curriculum with our senior minister, Reverend Michael Gott. So it was 12 weeks worth of content of these short videos, 12 weeks worth with promos and announcements and all that stuff. And so all the recordings are on these tiny little memory cards that I could put in my pocket. I lost them. I couldn't find them for quite a while. I looked everywhere. I looked 2, 3, 4 times in every place that they could possibly be. I looked in places they couldn't even possibly be, but just, why not? And so finally I decided I'm just going to have to tell him we're going to have to re-record everything. We're going to have to do the setup all over again, get the cameras, take a day out of his busy schedule and just record it all again. Once I surrendered, of course, I found him, like, just as sometimes, do you find that? Like, if you just surrender that resistance that you have, and then things just work out easily. And I do know that when I am in the dynamic flow of life, I don't really lose things, or I find them easily, but I was not in the dynamic flow of life sometimes. And so that's why I was having this experience of, I've lost these. So that's when I was beseeching and supplicating, please God, let me find these little tiny, they're like postage stamps, but thicker, and all this content that we had recorded. So anyway, I did find them, and I did tell him that I thought I lost them. And he said, we could have recorded it again. It would have been different, but we could have done it. So anyway, we have these different ideas of God, these different experiences of God. And as we're part of this collective awakening that's being birthed into the world, how do we do that? How can we bring more light into the world? How can I bring more light into the world? And I think it's by being clear, by having clarity. In other words, not being cloudy and muddy and opaque, but allowing myself to have as much clarity, as much pure clearness as possible. So how do you do that? Well, you got to get rid of some stuff, right? So if a system is gunked up, it's not going to work very well. So we become clear by releasing resistance, releasing, again, that any need to control, to fight against, to defend, to criticize, to judge, all that stuff that tends to come from the ego. I love to be right. My ego loves to be right. I like if I'm right and I know that somebody else is wrong, I really want to tell them. So it's really hard to sometimes just let that go. Like, I don't have to be right. My ego, I don't have to be right. It's okay. If people figure stuff out on their path, great. If they don't, fine, that's fine too. It's not my job to, tell people what their path is. So we dissolve thoughts not by analyzing thoughts or rejecting thoughts or fighting against thoughts, but by cultivating awareness, acceptance, and compassion. So I want to bring up this idea of the wounded healer. The wounded healer is an archetype, and I'm actually getting this from Michael Meade. He's a teacher and an author, and he has a podcast called Living Myth. So in one of his episodes, he was talking about this wounded healer. Healing means to make whole. And wholeness is not found externally. We can't find wholeness by looking at things and people and activities outside of ourselves. It's an inside job. So how do we heal? We have to be aware of wounds in order to heal them. And Michael Meade says that to be human is to be wounded. Like we're kind of wounded as soon as we arrive on the planet. It's just kind of part of the birth experience. It's part of the experience of being human. So the way that we can really heal and transform, unfortunately, is by looking at the wounds, by being aware of them, by being willing to not re-experience them, not tell the story forever so that it gets entrenched, but by being willing to look at it and release it. And I know for me that whenever there's something in my life that I didn't want to look at, that I wanted to keep hidden, that I don't want to admit to, that I don't want to share, that's the spot. That's the opportunity for the healing, for the transformation. And that's really the only way that I can really be of service to someone else, is if I have done the work, if I have done the internal work to heal myself. So that's, I think, part of the human condition, part of the human situation, is that if there's anything that we would rather keep hidden in the dark and not confront and not look at and not talk about and not admit to, that means it's incomplete. That means it's unresolved. And the only way to get to completion is to allow those thoughts, those feelings to dissolve. And one way we can dissolve them is through compassion, just loving ourselves, embracing our whole selves, not judging and criticizing ourselves and the other people who may have been involved in whatever wounding, whatever hurt, whatever we're experiencing, but by being able to put our arms around all of it, the full human experience, the highs and the lows, what we call bad and good. And that's just the possibilities that are opening and closing. It's okay when possibilities close. It's okay when they open. But again, just being open to all of it. It's equanimity. It's that finding that balance, that no matter what is happening, no matter what we're experiencing, we don't have to go into that duality of good, bad, right, wrong, better than, less than. We teach oneness. It's all one. It's all unity. It's all an experience that we can all share and be a part of, that we can learn from and grow from. And so the eternal, infinite source of love is not a source of judgment and criticism. It's not up there saying you're bad, you're wrong, you're doing it right, you're better than them, you're less than. It's all oneness. It's all one transformative opportunity to grow, to share, to learn. So the doorway to grace. What is the doorway to grace? Compassion. Compassion. And have you had those experiences where maybe you have your ego defenses, you have your facade, you have your persona, you have all your justifications, and then maybe you experience a crisis, and people get really raw and vulnerable sometimes in a crisis. You just had dropped the facade, and then you're seeing like real, immediate emotion and thoughts and feelings. So sometimes, yes, life is hard. Sometimes we suffer, we have pain, we go through really, really difficult experiences, and sometimes those are amazing opportunities where people they're just real. They're just really real with each other. Panache Desai says, crisis cuts through the thick layers of illusion of the ego. It just cuts right through it, right? So you've had those experiences where it's kind of amazing and raw and on edge and vulnerable, and you just know that you're in it. You're alive. There's no doubt. So doorway to grace, compassion and equanimity. Again, embracing the full human experience. How do we move from woundedness to wholeness? Well, again, we have this personal self, we have this human experience, and that's wonderful. We have these human senses, we have these human bodies, and we're experiencing this amazing world. And the ego is our little self, our personal self, our lowercase self, and we're called at the same time to recognize our divine oneness, our eternal self, our capital S self, And that self is connected to this, again, the infinite eternal source of all that is, no matter what, no matter the conditions that are happening in our lives. So allow the divine to uniquely express through you. I like this idea that the divine is having a blast, experiencing life as you and as me, and just getting to do all the things we get to do. Again, even if sometimes they're uncomfortable, it's an experience. And I can just imagine this sort of effervescence, this joy, this even laughter, and just pleasure at having these experiences that we get to have. So Panache Desai says that allowing the divine to uniquely express through you is the restoration of wholeness. It's union with divine consciousness. And the light of consciousness eliminates falsehoods and unresolved memories and dissolves ineffective thoughts. It's kind of a paraphrase. But basically, if we can release anything that's muddy, cloudy, opaque, anything that's not transparent, then we can be more effective conduits of light in this world. And as we're more effective conduits of light, then we are dropping the falsehoods. We're resolving these unresolved memories. We're releasing the baggage, the heaviness, anything that is blocking the light from coming through. So this idea of the wounded healer is that the way to the healing is through the wound. We don't get to go around it. We don't get to bypass the wounds. Yes, it can be difficult. Yes, it can take years. Yes, it can take therapy and crying and 12 steps and so many modalities that can help. But the way to get to wholeness is through the pain, not around the pain. So wounded healer is a paradox. It is a paradox. But maybe you can call to mind people in your life who have been very transformative, and maybe it's because they have that compassion of suffering. I know that some experiences in my life that I would rather have avoided, that I would rather not have, that, felt like some deep suffering, made me so much more compassionate for other people and for the human experience. So it could be that the most effective healers are the wounded healers. And so that's the invitation, just to confront, process, release, allow, and embrace the experiences so that we can resolve the unresolved memories. We can come to completion. We can dissolve, literally, figuratively, symbolically, emotionally, in every aspect, dissolve what's heavy, what we no longer need. Let it go. Let it go. And the only way through it is through it.
Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.